There are three distances that determine whether your kid is safe or vulnerable in any situation, and most parents don't know this. Once you know this, you'll have a completely new outlook on your kid's safety at all times. I'm Jake. I've been coaching kids martial arts for over 10 years. I'm a frontline security officer, and most importantly, I'm a dad. And what we're going to look at today is distances and how distances determine whether you're safe or potentially vulnerable. And this is applicable for everybody. If you're a kid, you're experiencing bullying, or me in my role, the number one thing that determines how dangerous the situation isn't the size, the strength of the person, it's how close you are to them. And you generally have direct control over that. But I'm going to show you a principle that we're going to be able to apply to how we think about how close we allow someone to us. And today I'm going to break it down into a nice simple way that makes sense to your kid. It doesn't matter what age they are, and I even teach this same concept to adults. So number one, which is our largest zone, and this is our green zone. Our green zone is a distance where we are unable to be touched by the person. Now the green light or the green zone is our safest distance, and this is generally where we always want to be. It depends on situation, how comfortable our trust in the person does change how we allow someone in this, and this is directly tied to the video where I talk about setting boundaries and who we let into what area. How the green light works, right, is this is the biggest distance. This can be 1 kilometer away from somebody or 1 mile away from somebody, right up until the distance where they're just unable to touch you. And I use the wording just unable to touch you because in mixed martial arts, being this far away from someone's reach is a safe distance. But we want to maintain that distance, okay? And one little step or one little lean forwards, they might be able to touch you. But the green zone is anywhere from outside of an arm reach. Now, why would we want to be in the green zone? The green zone is so good because they are just unable to get you. They are unable to just touch you. Can they move forwards? Yes. But you have time to be able to react to that movement and to get away, or continuing to keep that green zone. We always want to be outside of an arm's reach. Now the thing with the green zone is it does vary depending on who is the other person. So if you're up against me, I'm not the tallest, I don't have the longest arms, so it's literally this far. Like you have to be this far away from me to be in the green zone. Now if you're 6 foot something tall, you got really long arms, that green zone, their ability to touch you has increased because their reach is much more significant than mine. So you have to be mindful of what the green zone is. It's their ability to touch you, not your ability to touch them. And the green zone is what we want to teach our kids to be in, because we shouldn't have to let someone else touch us. We should be able to create space, stand away. Like I said in the other video, it depends on the trust, our friendship level, all these other factors of who we let into that space. But in terms of self-defense, the green zone's the safest. We can always take that step back so they can't touch us. Moving on to the red zone, okay? So the next one is that arm's reach, and that's anywhere from this being able to get hit by a long straight arm or nice and close into the hook. So this is the danger zone, okay? Anywhere from being hit with a long cross or a jab, and more like in self-defense situations, being able to be pushed, being able to be assaulted. If they have a weapon, it's extended, it's whatever that distance is that you can be hit. Okay, so this is the danger zone, okay? The danger zone is the red zone. Anywhere that you can be pushed, kicked, punched, anywhere that they have the potential to touch you, right up until a short distance where you're not actually making full contact, okay? So in martial arts, I break those levels down a little bit more in depth, but for kids, it's really important that we have the safe zone. They can't possibly hit you. The red zone, we can get hit, okay? Anywhere from a long arm to a short arm, they can generate a lot of danger. In the sports side of martial arts, I say that the red zone is high risk, but it's also high reward because we can also hit back. But in terms of self-defense, we don't want to be there, okay? It's only going to lead to escalation of conflict, escalation of severity of the outcome. It's never going to lead to a good situation for your kid. If they're in school or social interaction, whatever it is, it's going to lead to a consequence, and we don't want to be there. And it's the red zone because the consequence is high, not just the punishment wise, because if you get into a fight and you get into a scuffle, there's going to be a punishment for suspended, expelled, whatever the school punishment might be, but the risk, okay, you can get hit in the head, there's head trauma, there's damage. That's why we learn how to block intelligently. But we just don't want to be there. We just don't want to be in the situation that we need to use our self-defense techniques. We want to be able to set boundaries, keep distance, so we never get here in the first place, because nothing good happens in the red zone, just like nothing good happens after 2 a.m. in the morning when you're out. Okay, so if we want to teach them that your kids, nothing good happens after 2 a.m. in the morning, and nothing good happens in the red zone. Okay, now before we hop into the last zone, it would help if you could drop a like and subscribe on the channel. It really helps out. It's a small little click and it goes a really long way, so I appreciate you. Heading into the yellow zone, and this is one, it's yellow because it has the potential of being red, but it also has the potential of being green, but there is like a caveat, and that is that it depends on what much, and it depends on the knowledge that you have. Okay, so the yellow zone is full contact. This is when we're in the hug zone, okay? And most physical interactions that are like violent or like fighting, they end up in this zone. It's just human nature. We end up, might start with some punching, kicking, and then eventually we end up in that clinch. We end up in a hold. Now, the reason why it's yellow is because what happens is when we close that distance and when you're actually hugging someone, you're that close to them, they can't generate significant amount of force to hit you, especially if you're super close to them, like glue. So I often say to the kids, you either want to be in the green zone, you want to be all the way out, or we're all the way in, because if you're glued to them, they're not able to generate significant amount of force in that area to be able to lead to long-lasting damage or significant damage. But the thing is, if that person has a deeper understanding of martial arts or wrestling, or if they're stronger or bigger, it can lead into that red zone quite quickly. They can pick you up, they can slam you, they can throw you around if you don't know what you're doing, or you've gotten into a situation with someone much bigger and much stronger. That doesn't mean it can actually be safer. I am on the smaller side, and I have like high confidence that if I was to get into an interaction with somebody that ends up being physical, I would either want to be out of range or I'd want to be all the way in. I don't want to be in that red zone, because even though I understand martial arts, I've been doing kickboxing from a young age, the risk in that red zone, I could get hit. And that hit could lead to me being unconscious. I could hit my head on the ground, and the risk just isn't worth it. But if I was to close that gap and I was able to grab somebody, I have the knowledge, even if they're bigger or stronger, to be able to control them, to get into a position of I'm safe and protected, at least for someone else to intervene, especially in my workplace. So I would rather be in a full controlled position. I'd rather them be hugging me than punching me. So the yellow zone is a little bit of a confusing one, okay, especially for kids that are just starting self-defense. So the general rule is we stay in the green zone. We create distance and we move away. The yellow zone is something that can turn into a green zone. So in martial arts, in my kids that have gone up the belt levels and they're more confident in their jiu-jitsu, it's green, red, green. Okay, it doesn't become yellow or red because we have the information, we have the knowledge, and we have the skills to be able to control someone in that zone. But for a self-defense situation, for someone who doesn't have a lot of knowledge, it is yellow because it has that potential, depending on the size, the skill set, the strength of the other person, it can easily turn into a red zone. So what this means is we're going to teach our kid to create distance. We want them to stay into the green zone for as long as possible, or always. We want them to keep that distance. And how do we keep distance? How do we learn how to keep distance? It's something that is generally easier said than done, because like I said, most physical interactions will naturally head into that grappling situation. It's almost inevitable, but by setting clear boundaries, by being able to use your hands to create contact and learning to step back, create distance, there are ways. And we're actually going to use this concept in our school community, and we're going to do an activity with the parents, and we're going to use a shoulder tag drill just to have some fun, move around, and just to understand what your distance is. And this is really great to do with your kids, because you're generally, unless you've got teenagers, always going to have a longer reach than them. So they're going to have to figure out how I'm able to tag you without being tagged by my parent, because they have longer reach than me, and they're going to understand that. It's hard for me to maintain a safe position with someone taller than me, and it just allows them to problem solve the ability of staying out into a long range. And when I come in, maybe I gotta get into a hug. If that sounds a little bit confusing or make way more sense, you can hop over to the school community. You can do the activity with your kids. The link is in the description. But the main takeaway is we got the green light, we're all the way out, you can't touch me, I feel super comfortable here, there's not really much risk. The next is the red zone. This is where you can touch me, you can grab me, and you can punch me, kick me, you can even, if you have weapons, you're able to hit me in that area. We want to get out, or we want to get in. If they have a weapon, we're always getting out, but if they don't and they're just punching or kicking us, sometimes going in is more intelligent. It's the smarter move to do, because we're able to take away their ability to generate a lot of force and a lot of potential harm to us by closing that distance and creating pressure and holding them and having some control of the interactions that's going. Especially if we have the skills or we have the techniques, and especially if the variable of the opponent isn't super stronger, super bigger than us, maybe getting in is smarter. But general rule of thumb, we want to stay in that green zone as much as we can, and this is such an important lesson to pass on to your kids. And here's what most people don't realize is the goal is never to be comfortable to fight in that red zone. It's to avoid it at all costs. Now, I've learned martial arts my whole life. I grew up doing martial arts in my shed, in my garage with my dad, because he was competing Muay Thai and it was a normal part of my life. But I never wanted to be in that position because I knew what the risk was involved with that, especially in an uncontrolled environment. So the goal isn't to be comfortable learning that. It's to have the confidence to be able to move in between them and make the decision of which one we're actually going to be in, and not allowing that decision to be in the hands of someone else when we're trying to protect ourselves. That's the true goal. And if you want a little bit of help with that, you can hop over to Creating Confident Kids community, where I dive more deep into self-defense curriculum, where we work with our kids as parents to create confidence and unshakable self-esteem and real-life self-defense techniques, where we help them create confidence, build unshakable self-esteem, and teach them real practical self-defense. And we actually have a martial arts curriculum as well. So thank you for listening. I'd like your opinion on the light system or on the zones. Now don't forget to like and subscribe, drop a comment down below, and I'll see you next time.